This week we are doing Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. It's by Jonathan Haidt. I'm Jamie Livingston.
And I'm Sarah Lyles, and we are so approachable. All right, so this was your pick.
Yeah, we're switching things up. We're going nonfiction this time. And I think it's a good fit for us. We're both parents. We have children who are kind of on the cusp of this. We're talking about technology and phones. I have a teenager and a preteen and a less than preteen.
All the things.
Right. I also have a baby. And so it's one of those things where I am considering these things and how I raise this child in this new age. And I think I'm really interested to hear your takes as well, because you have the preteen kind of below that, but I'm sure you're having those conversations too.
Yes, and so I do work with middle schoolers, so I also get a lot of that. So I have, a younger and then middle, and then obviously a lot of work with a lot of middle school girls and boys. So it's exciting.
I am really interested to hear your takes on that, because my kid is in middle school right now, and there's so much there. So I'm excited to unpack this with you. I'm excited for our listeners to hear us talk about this. So we are not the experts. We are just talking about the book.
Yes.
So tell me about the expert.
All right. So Jonathan Haidt is a social psychologist at New York University's Stern School of Business. He received his PhD from the University of Pennsylvania in 1992 and taught for 16 years in the Department of Psychology at the University of Virginia.
Okay, so that's our expert. I do have the kind of a big paragraph that will explain what this book is. It says, in The Anxious Generation, social psychologist Jonathan Haidt lays out the facts about the epidemic of teen mental illness that hit many countries at the same time. He then investigates the nature of childhood, including why children need play and independent exploration to mature into competent, thriving adults. Haidt shows how the play-based childhood began to decline in the 1980s and how it was finally wiped out by the arrival of the phone-based childhood in the early 2010s. He presents more than a dozen mechanisms by which this great rewiring of childhood has interfered with children's social and neurological development, covering everything from sleep deprivation to attention fragmentation, addiction, loneliness, social contagion, social comparison, and perfectionism. He explains why social media damages girls more than boys, and why boys have been withdrawing from the real world into the virtual world with disastrous consequences for themselves, their families, and their societies.
That's a lot.
Wow. And that's why I wanted you to read this book, because I had read this one before and you hadn't, and I know there's just so much here.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I think that is a really great synopsis of the book. It kind of just ties a lot of it in there. There's a lot more meat, obviously, in a lot of that, but that's a great way to explain that book.
I highly recommend listening to this audiobook.
Absolutely.
The book itself is great, and it has diagrams and things that you can look at, but the audiobook may be a little easier to chew.
Yes.
Because it's pretty dry. And so listening, and they describe the graphs and the charts. Mm-hmm. So I found that very helpful.
Oh, I agree. I tried to read it, and then you said audiobook, and so it literally made it so much better, because it was really hard to read.
Yeah. I do want to address the ratings on this one. Goodreads, it has a 4.35. A lot of people have weighed in, and the 2 and 1 stars are minuscule. And so the majority, 50%, are 5-star ratings. So that's not to say that there isn't any criticism to this, but You can see that this is a book that really hits home for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a specific book. You're going to only seek this out if you're looking for kind of a lot of what that is. So understanding that, kind of weighing in those people that are reading the book are looking for this type of book. They're looking for this, what is going on with the world that we live in and our kids.
Right. So we are going to get to some of the discussion questions, but I do want to preface this with there are people who don't agree with the research here and the expert, which you're going to get on any topic.
Correct.
So we're going to provide these links for you, and if you want to dig into whether or not this is fact, go for it. We're just going to have a well-rounded discussion about our lives, what we've witnessed, and what this book made us think about.
Right. Yeah, and we want to hear from our listeners too. So I want to know, and I'm very curious to know their perspective, know what they think afterwards, because I think there's a lot of people that can give us areas that we never even thought about.
Right. I try to read things like this with a critical eye, but everything just kept coming and coming. And I was like, oh, this makes so much sense, so much sense. And then I read an article like this one from The Guardian, and it says, it's trash. So what did they have to say, Sarah?
All right, from The Guardian, Haidt was making an appeal to ignorance, a logical fallacy, simply because there are no other explanations for the deterioration of the mental health of teenagers on the bestseller list right now does not mean his book is right. What's more, the anxious generation barely acknowledges the effect of school closures during the pandemic had on kids and teens' mental health and development. The Washington Post technology reporter Taylor Linares pointed out on her podcast, the anxious generation includes graphs showing that adolescent mental health grew worse beginning in 2020, but Haidt insists that the pandemic was only an accelerant to an already raging fire caused by smartphones. Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the pandemic is its own study. We know.
Yes.
We've witnessed it.
Yes.
Our children went through it.
We lived in it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I agree that there is room for the data to be skewed.
Yes.
I get that.
Yes.
But in the book, he definitely points to things way before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so that was where I fight back.
Right. And what do you have?
I have an article from Nature. So this is a little more scientific.
Yeah.
2 things need to be said after reading The Anxious Generation. First, this book is going to sell a lot of copies because Jonathan Haidt is telling a scary story about children's development that many parents are primed to believe. Guilty. Second, the book's repeated suggestion that digital technologies are rewiring our children's brains and causing an epidemic of mental illness is not supported by science. Worse, the bold proposal that social media is to blame might distract us from effectively responding to the real causes of current mental health crisis in young people. Hundreds of researchers, myself included, have searched for the kind of large effects suggested by Haidt. Our efforts have produced a mix of no, small, and mixed associations. Most data are correlative. When associations over time are found, they suggest not that social media use predicts or causes depression, but that young people who already have mental health problems use such platforms more often or in different ways from their healthy peers.
That's a great review.
Right.
Yeah.
And I agree. I know that I am in the seat where I'm going to take this hook, line, and sinker, and so I'm trying to be realistic and trying to look really at the data and see if it makes sense, the causal or correlative, what is it?
Right. Yeah.
But there's too many coincidental things here stacking up. I did find another interesting paper, and it was by Bill Gates. So we're thinking...
Yeah, he's a big guy. Yeah.
Tech magnate.
Guru, amazing. Yeah.
And he had some good words to say, reflecting on his own childhood.
Oh, okay.
And whether or not he would have become what he became or discovered what he discovered. Reading Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation has made me wonder, would I have developed this habit if I had grown up with today's technology? If every time I was alone in my room as a kid, there was a distracting app I could scroll through? If every time I sat down to tackle a programming problem as a teenager, 4 new messages popped up? I don't have the answers, but these are questions that everyone who cares about how young minds develop should be asking. All of this is concerning, but I am especially worried about the impact on critical thinking and concentrating. Our attention spans are like muscles, and the nonstop interruptions and addictive nature of social media make it incredibly difficult for them to develop. Without the ability to focus intensely and follow an idea wherever it leads, the world could miss out on breakthroughs that come from putting your mind to something and keeping it there, even when the dopamine hit of a quick distraction is one click away.
Wow. That was a big, big review. And way him to really think through that, that's powerful.
Well, and I think that's why I wanted to include that because, yes, the data may be skewed or he might be looking at it some way. There might be a bias somewhere.
Right.
But these are the questions we need to be asking.
Yeah, of course. And I think that goes along with like every area, not just what he's talking about. There's a lot of things in our kids' today's lives that were not like ours. And so it's good for us to keep learning and not be like, well, back in my day.
So I think we can kind of jump in because I think we'll kind of put some of our personal stories in here. But the book itself starts by this analogy of growing up on Mars.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an interesting take, very extreme.
Very extreme. I mean, you read that, automatically you go, no, of course not.
Heck no, I'm not letting my kid go to Mars without my permission.
With all this unspoken data, like, oh, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, this probably will happen. I was like, no way. I mean, no way. And really, after I read that, I was like, but how does this have to do with anything about anxiety?
Right. But it is interesting. Again, it's way more extreme, but it causes you to stop and think.
Right.
Are we sending our kids to Mars by putting them in this society of technology? We didn't have that growing up.
No.
I mean, I definitely remember our parents saying that our brains were going to melt when we watched 2 episodes of Boy Meets World. Like, that was a thing. Like, we spent too much time in front of the TV, and that was like 2 hours a day. And now kids are on 7 hours a day, almost constantly.
Yeah.
It's a very different scene. So likening it to Mars, maybe going a little too far literally, but still a good point to think about.
Right. And I think that it does make you stop and go, okay, now I'm hooked. I want to know what he's talking about. That did catch me to go, all right, where's he going with this? Let me find out. And so him even correlating that to go, well, we turned out okay, and we didn't have all these things. And so, and where are our kids going? Because we don't know. It is true. We don't know what their adulthood's going to look like.
Well, and I think just the fact that a lot of these social media companies, you don't have to prove that you're 13. Like,
no, you don't.
You don't have to. There's no parent that is actually signing off on this. And so that's really the crux of what he's saying is technology companies need to be held accountable as well.
Well, yeah, and it's so easy for you to lie. And I think it's really interesting that he says how the adulthood on like how old you are online is 13. And to me, at 13, you are so impressionable. There's so much going on in your life, so many rapid changes. You are listening to all of these people, that these big name people who don't have it together, they think they have it all together because they look at the fame and the fortune, and that's what they're looking to while they're online for hours and hours doom scrolling. And so I am worried about our future a little bit, yes.
Well, right. And like Bill Gates was saying, we might be missing out on breakthroughs because people aren't focusing and becoming resilient. There was one chapter that talked about being anti-fragile. And I think the first time I listened to the book, I didn't fully understand that concept. And so going back through, I was like, oh my goodness, that is so true. Our kids need to be tested. They need to be tried. And I think one of the people had said that they find ways to annoy their children every day. Because if you don't push up against them, their roots won't grow deeper and they will be knocked over by a storm. And there are so many times, and I see that in my children, that the slightest inconvenience throws them into a major meltdown. It's like, no, you got to suck it up, Buttercup. We got to figure this out, because that was a teeny problem. It did not require a tantrum.
Right. And I mean, he goes into talking about how we're overprotecting our children in the real world, but we're underprotecting them in, the virtual world. And so that's scary. I mean, to think of the things that we give them access to when we hand them a phone. A lot of parents don't think about how much access and how much they're giving them, handing them that phone. It is like putting them in the middle of a highway and telling them, don't look left or right, just cross the road.
Well, and it definitely changed my perspective that there isn't a different internet for the kids.
No.
Like, we can put on a couple parental guidelines, parameters there, but they're seeing everything that we're seeing.
Right.
That is terrifying. And I'll be the first to admit that I don't understand the parental controls. I trust my husband to do that. But that's something that I really do need to figure out because it's so significant. The fact that you can be 13 and witnessing all of these other things. You go to a website and it's like, this has 18 and up content. Are you 18 and up? Are you 21 and up? Click.
Yeah.
Provide a birth date. Okay, I can do the math to figure
Yes.
out that this is the year that I need to be old enough.
Right. And you don't even have to be 13 because I know some parents, for whatever reason, or whatever, there might be reasonings behind it. Fourth graders, third graders that have phones. And I'm just like, I don't understand how parents, and maybe someone can give me some insight that maybe they do have a kid that has a phone that young. Maybe there is some really good benefits. I have a third grader. I cannot imagine letting her because she doesn't know what to do with it. Right. And then you have the flip side of overprotecting them in the real world where we're like the helicopter parents. And so it's like, you got to have a good balance.
I was thrown into parenting. I am a stepmom. And so there's a lot of things that I walked into that were already existing.
Right.
And I kind of have to feel that out. I want to tell you, it was probably the most surprising thing to me when I came into the picture that we walked our kids down to this school bus stop. That shook my world because I grew up walking to the bus stop on my own. I got myself up in the morning.
Yeah.
I had breakfast. I packed my bags and I walked to the bus stop. And if I missed the bus, I was in trouble because I had to go and wake up my mom and she had to drive me in and there was going to be trouble.
There were going to be consequences.
Well, in my bus stop, it wasn't like just walking down the cul-de-sac or down to the corner. We lived on a country highway. It was a 55-mile-an-hour road. I'm an 8-year-old walking at 6:30 in the morning in the dark along the side of this street and standing out at the end of our neighbor's driveway for the bus to pick me up. Probably 50 yards, 100 yards. Like, it was a decent distance. And we did that on our own. And at the end of the day, I got off the bus and walked home. And there's the latchkey kid, whatever you want to call it. But to see that in our cute little cul-de-sac neighborhood, we walk our kid down to the bus stop and have to go and pick them up in the afternoon as well. Like, I don't trust them to just walk down and get on the bus myself. That was eye-opening to me as a new parent.
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, because I'm not at that part where I need to walk my kids, or have I ever walked my kids. But I could imagine being like, I don't remember ever walking with my mom.
Well, and there were a dozen other parents standing down at the end of the bus stop like with their kids.
The only time my mom would ever take me to the bus stop is if it was raining.
Yep.
And so I was the only time, and I'd be like, Mom, it's raining.
Same. Oh, my goodness. And she would begrudgingly get up with her slippers on and get in the car. Yep.
And really, I mean, and I never felt unsafe. And obviously my mom never felt unsafe letting me walk to the bus stop. And so that wasn't even, like, reading this going, was it, what? You know, like, for you to have experienced that, I could not imagine how weird that would feel.
Well, and there are so many examples of the helicopter parenting and the overprotecting. Just, we don't give our kids freedom, and it's all, you need to be observing them, you need to be chaperoning them, you need to be out on the front porch when they're playing in the front yard. And it's the fact that we feel the pressure to do that because other people will come and report them. Like, these kids are just running amok. And it's like, this is a society as a whole has become so crazy that we can't let our kids just play.
Right. And the thing that I've noticed, like in school, I'll give that example, is that the kids don't know how to play. When we don't give them the opportunity at home, you can definitely tell which kids' parents allow them to give freedom in toys and say no TV, no technology, just play with your toys. You can see that they don't have an imagination. They don't know how to come up with things. They aren't the little girls coming with the baby dolls thinking like, oh, this is my baby, or the little boys taking the cars and, you know, knowing how to play them. They don't know how to play. It's not that they don't want to. They don't know how to because they've never had the option or the ability to sit there and use an imagination, because their minds get used to that racing technology that flashes in their mind, and they want more and they want more. And then they're bored when it comes to something that they have to use their brain for.
I see that with my children, and our older boys are kind of in that phase where they're not used to playing on their own or not being supervised. And I'm looking at my baby, and she picks up her baby doll and starts feeding her her little bottle and can sit in her little playpen for an hour while I'm working and just amuse herself. And it speaks to my heart. Like, it is just the most precious thing, and I don't want to lose that. And so that's where, again, reading this now, I'm looking at answers for my kids who are in this phase, in the thick of it, but also for my 18-month-old who... How much screen time do I give her? When do I want to just relax and watch Miss Rachel? Like, how do I navigate that? So there's kind of this whole spectrum. And I do want to say that this book is for people without kids as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because I learned for myself in reading this book, like, oh, wow, maybe I need to limit myself on what I'm doing, because it also is rewiring my brain. And I've been so guilty of wasting so much time. I say, oh, I don't have time for this. How many hours do I waste a week on doom scrolling? Like, really, if I think of how many wasted hours I just looking at nothing, I'm benefiting nothing from it.
So I guess I'm going to jump to our next question, which is, do you have any tech rules in your home, and do they work, and how do they apply to you as a parent?
Well, I do. So for my kids, Monday through Thursday school, there's no technology unless the school requires it, which that's also a whole nother difficult thing, right? But my children know Monday through Thursday, there will be no TV, there will be no iPad, there will be nothing, because it takes away time from them being able to play. Kids are at school all day long. They've been in front of a TV because they usually watch something, or they have been in front of a Chromebook or a tablet. And so they need their eyes and their brains just to calm. And so for me, it works wonderfully. My kids can go out in our backyard and play, because they know Monday through Thursday, don't even bother asking Mom, because she's going to tell us no. And so the hardest part is the other kids. My daughter's like, Mom, but my friends don't have that rule. My friends get to do whatever they want. My friends can FaceTime. And so that is hard. But at the same time, I tell her all the time, like, you just play. She's like, but my friends don't play with Barbies. And I said, and it doesn't matter. Do you like them? Yes, let's play. And so a lot of times that makes my husband and I have to get down and play the Barbies with her. But it helps her grow in that loving to be a kid. You know, I feel like I can't be kids anymore. And so that's really a hard one. But yeah, what about you?
I love that. And we implemented something similar to that. Basically, we still have the TV on at some point, but no devices. So they can't have their Switch, they can't have their Kindle during the week, because it became something where they would race through their homework to get to screen time. And it was like their grades were suffering, their attention was suffering. They weren't putting in the effort. They were just sliding by. And so it was like, nope, it's not an option. And so I love that it's not even on the table. Don't even think about asking. Maybe once in a great while, if you haven't asked in ages and there is free time, I would consider it. But the expectation is absolutely not.
Right.
And then on the weekends, trying to figure out the balance.
Right.
During the summer, I've done it where they have to read a certain amount of minutes to earn a certain amount of minutes on a device. And that worked really well for us for a time. But then they needed to prove that they were actually reading, because one of them likes to just go and take a nap and then get screen time. I'm like, that doesn't count. No. But I do enjoy that one, because then they're accomplishing something. And sometimes they don't realize that they're still reading and they've earned more time to play. But that's one of our rules.
That's a great rule. I think that would never work for me. My daughter loves reading. And so we go through probably 50 books a month from the library with her. So she would get a lot of screen time.
That's interesting. Yeah. My kids are not at that stage where they enjoy it. I feel like we are forcing reading upon them.
Well, a lot of it might also be you're stepping into this. These are probably newer rules for you guys. It kind of sounds like it. But for me, it's been since she's been in school. So a lot of our like push of like reading was let's find what she's into. I don't care what she's reading. Mind you, I will do my backlog of like, okay, what is this book about? But I don't care if she's reading like a comic book or she's reading like a magazine that's like a kid's highlights. It doesn't matter what it is as long as she's been reading. And now she's starting to finally get into chapter books. And it's like, I love her love of reading. And so I know my my husband's hesitancy of like, come on, just give him a little bit of, and then he finally was like, all right. And I think he's now seeing the benefits of our kids love to read, our kids love to play. And a lot of that is, let me be honest, it is hard on me. And you probably can echo that. It is harder on me. And I get it. Parents that I am not dogging you whatsoever because I get it. It is harder on me to say no to technology. It would be so much easier for me to say, here's your tablet. So let me go clean the house or let me go do laundry. Let me veg out because I've had a hard day. But knowing that these years are so short, that I signed up to be their parent, so I need to step in to keep the harsh, like, no, you can't have that. It's for your benefit is important.
Do you notice a difference between your kids when they have had a lot of screen time versus not? Is there a difference from maybe on the weekend when they have screens, then going back to Monday when they can't? I feel like my kids kind of go through a withdrawal, and it's alarming to see the difference. But that was one of the positive things that we saw when we started implementing this no devices during the week. They were less moody. They were less grumpy. They were less combative because they were more engaged in the world around them.
Yeah, absolutely. I do say the attitude. I don't know what it is about the screen. And maybe it's the rapid fire of the lights on the screens that's getting to them. And there is something like an exhaust. You are exhausted when you're on devices in a different way than you're actually physically exhausted. And so I definitely see a shift. I will say I'm a little guilty. My daughter, while I was reading this book, she didn't even realize I was reading this book, but she said to me, Mom, when after school, can you and Dad put your phones away? Because I just want you to be present. And I never realized that she was looking at it like my phone is more important than her. And I was like, oh, guilty. And so we don't realize as human beings sometimes that that's the impression that we're giving to them, even though that's not what the case is. They don't know what we're reading. It's very, often my husband's reading an email that's for work that he needs to get back to, but it's like, could that wait an hour? It probably could, but a lot of our like work ethic is like, we want to get it done. We want to get it done. But she's like, Mom and Dad, can you put your phones away? Because it just feels like they're more important than us. And we're like, absolutely.
It's amazing that she has the ability to pinpoint that and speak those words, because I found this book very convicting, and it made me change the way that I interact with my kids. I'm a lot more intentional about putting my phone down and not responding every time my watch buzzes or every time I see the notification pop up on the screen, because it kills a conversation.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to be open, I mean, we have to set the example.
Yeah.
If we're going to say no devices and no games throughout the week, then I probably shouldn't be on my phone doom scrolling while they're doing their homework. Like, that's not fair. And so it really has made me analyze more how I'm on my device.
Yeah. I broke my Apple Watch by accident at a spa one day. It totally killed it. But I noticed and I didn't even ask for another one, since I've not had it, it has been I haven't even missed it. It's different, because I went from being 100% available all the time to being like, where's my phone? Where's my phone at? And so it's amazing that technology, that although good, there's so many benefits to it. I didn't realize how addicted I was. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, this was really great in that aspect. So even if you don't have kids, read it, because it will make you think for your own self.
Now, for your teacher hat, do you notice a difference between kids when it seems like they've been on devices versus they haven't?
The hard part is they require those Chromebooks. I mean, I'm not a fan. I'm someone who wants them to play a lot. I will definitely say that I hate the phones and the technology and the social media with school-wide, because you take someone who's bullying you at school all day. And back when we were growing up, you knew you only had to face them from certain hours. Well, now you're taking that bullying home with you. They now can reach you any time of the day. And so even though, yes, you could block them, you could stop it, but there's other friends, they're bringing in these different conversations. And so they're taking that stuff that they had dealt with all day, now they're taking it home with them. So now their home is not even their safe place. And so I see a lot of that cycle. You know, some of the kids kind of laugh and call me their counselor because they're always in and out of my office talking to me this, but all the time, constantly, daily, if not weekly, I hear all the time the kids saying, well, so-and-so texted me and said this about me. So-and-so was posted a picture of me on social media without my permission, you know, talking about their rights, standing up for what they are. And so we as parents need to do better at saying, you gotta like stand up. Like parents probably don't even realize that this is happening.
Right. If you're not actually going through your child's device, you have no idea. And even then, they have ways around stuff.
Oh, yes.
And they will delete text messages. And there's so much that we do need to educate ourselves on. I want to go back because you mentioned how much of an advocate you are for play. So there's another section in the questions with all sorts of things about playing. You said that you are trying to get recess for everyone every day. Why do you think that is so important?
Well, not just recess. I think they need physical education. So he actually even talks about in this book about how they took out more recess. They took out more physical education to push more math and literature. And so all those things are important. But in my opinion, I mean, this is strictly my opinion, not my professional opinion, but just my opinion, these kids that are acting out, that need like their brain, I feel like their brains can't really function well if they're not physically sweating it out, playing games, just doing things more fun. Kids don't have fun anymore.
Right.
And if we're not the ones at the school getting them out, oftentimes when they're home, they are behind closed doors and not asked or forced to play outside. And so I wish there was more of this, get in the green, breathe in the fresh air, figure out nature. And so it doesn't happen as much as it used to. I think I was laughing with you earlier about the, what's it called? The merry-go-round thing.
Yeah.
I mean, so many broken bones I'm sure happened on that thing, but like, just think of how many memories.
Yeah. It's interesting because one of the questions says, think back to your own childhood.
Yes.
What are your most thrilling memories? Could your child have a similar experience today? And so I think back, I lived out in the country, out in the sticks. We had 10 acres. Part of it was woods. We had a gravel pit that we would go and explore. You talked about maybe getting tetanus. Like, we definitely 100% touched rusty nails. And there was a dump, so there was old mattresses and bed springs. There was so much that we could have killed ourselves on. And likely, there was definitely blood. There was definitely cuts and bruises. We built tree forts. We did all of the things. I'm an avid tree climber. Love it. Absolutely. I was up any tree. If I fell, if a branch snapped, like that was on me. And so I think about that. We kind of live next to the woods now, and our kids don't ever really go out there. There's a couple times that they will. We have a lot of ticks, and so that's part of the reason. But it's one of those where I'm like, get out, go, climb a tree. You're getting big, so the branches might snap, but like, can you just explore and do something?
Yeah.
When you're complaining about being bored, we have so much land out there. Just go. Get lost. Well, maybe not lost, because then I have to find you and
Just put an Apple tag on them. They'll be fine.
right. Oh, my goodness. That's the thing, though. And so I think about those experiences where we had a big bell that my mom would ring when it was time to come back for dinner. Like, that was our communication. I had the conversation with my son the other day about when I got my first cell phone, and he about hit the floor because I was 18, and he thought that was the most incredulous thing, like not possible. I was like, well, there were a couple other kids that had cell phones, but I was like, you had to pay per text message. And he about lost it at that. I was like, yeah, and if you called me before 9 o'clock, I told you to hang up and call me back later. And we had to use the home phone. And so we had this whole discussion because he has a cell phone. And that was a decision that we made to give him a cell phone, mostly because he's going in between two homes. And so this way we have a direct line of communication to the boys when they're at the other house. And the same with their mom. So that was really the only reason that he has a phone now. And we tried to remind him that, like, this is a privilege. This was not our intention. What is the age you guys decided that your kids might get a phone?
Might, yes. So to me, I look at it as when you're driving. So we had talked about maybe getting like what we'd call like a home cell phone. So our kids, our daughter plays soccer, envisioning that she'd be playing travel, that anytime we're not there, that she needs to reach us, maybe she could take it with her. But I'm talking like we're going to roll it back and be like, here's a flip phone, here's something, no smartphone. Because to me, again, we're giving them access things that they don't need and they don't know how to use. So 16 probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great place to start. I think that the dumb phone really needs to become popular again because that is really all they need. I tried to explain that to my son. It was like, I would use somebody else's phone to call my mom, and I had the phone numbers memorized so that I could use somebody else's phone to just say, hey, we're coming back from the softball game. And that was all that needed to be communicated. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I tried to remind him, like, this is a privilege, and when you're scrolling and doing stuff, he's not scrolling on social media, but texting schoolmates and things, like, you don't have permission to do that. You have permission to talk to us.
Right.
Like, this is for your parents. And if you ask us, if you're trying to communicate or set up some sort of a play date, like, that's what you have permission for. But you can't keep asking Siri all these questions. Like, that's not okay.
Right. And I mean, I loved my razor. I mean, my red razor. I mean, you didn't have a pager?
No, I did not have a pager.
That's, ages me a year or two older than you. So that was like, to me, being able to have that level of communication was just so different. Again, back then we would play. They'd call this, our parents would call the other parents' home phone to call and be like, we're on our way, or, give us a call when you're ready to be picked up. There was none of this, like, we're just going to text you, hey, how's it going? Or just text you, like, do you need anything? Or it just was such a different lifestyle.
Well, he also touched on the fact that we, in general, trusted adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that I would say, oh, you're over there? That's fine. And now you have to get, like, a full-blown background check on anybody that your child is going to hang out with. And that is crazy to me, that we have to do such thorough vetting of our kids' friends' parents to find out if it's a safe environment or what their rules are, or that I can't count on somebody to be like, hey, knock it off. You're being a punk.
Well, here's the thing. You got to think about when we were growing up. Our parents probably hung out with our other parents, the other kids' parents. And so the community life was so different. How I remember it, my mom would have coffee with our neighbors. They would talk. They would have communications. The other parents, like PTA, there actually was more involvement from our parents in a lot of our community than there is what I see now. And even like, mind you, we got an amazing PTA at our school, but to get parent involvement, it's hard. It's hard to get parents involved.
I'm sorry.
And I get it. You guys are working. You're busy. I get it. But life was just so much slower. And so it was different. Our priorities, in my mind, in my thoughts, through reading this, I feel like not just a lot shifted, but I feel like the priorities shifted. And so it's like, did our priorities shift of where we wanted to go is like, oh, I really want to communicate with you face to face, because people don't even pick up the phone anymore. They text. And so it feels weird. Probably when I call you, you're like, hello, why are you calling me? And so it's one of those things, like having a phone call conversation or face-to-face conversation is not of the norm nowadays.
I'm curious, free play means that your kids are actually out playing without you supervising. He brings up a good illustration about some rules that are posted on playground fences about how to play tag, and you can't play touch football unless there's an adult present. What do you think about unsupervised play?
I love it. I actually think it's very great. I mean, obviously, age appropriate. I mean, my 8-year-old, I will send her out in my backyard and just like stay within the backyard. I mean, if I need, I can look out the window and see her. But at the same time, I think it's good for her. I think it's good for her to be able to make mistakes, maybe fall. I mean, how are you not ever going to learn how, like you were saying, like, oh, all these things we need to do. What were you saying? Like, rough up your kids or kind of pick on them.
Irritate them, annoy them every day.
But the same goes for, like, how are they going to know that it's unsafe to climb a tree and fall out of it until they have the cast on, which we don't see many casts anymore. And so a lot of free play comes, yes, with consequences, but at the flip side, as you become an adult, if you didn't have those, and I mean, we haven't seen that yet, but I envision if you don't have those things happening, how are you as an adult? Are you going to be scared? Are you going to be fearful? Are you not ever going to is there going to be no more stuntmen? And
right. Yes. Well, he talked about how college kids are so entitled and fragile.
Yeah.
And like we're seeing the results of this.
Yeah.
It's happening. But yeah, I think the unsupervised play is so important, and it's difficult if you've been a helicopter parent to like release that. It's hard, but I think that we're being a little more intentional about that now. Like maybe you should be able to ride your bike down to the next street. Maybe you should be able to play in the backyard, and I hope you'll stay out there for 20 minutes before you come bugging me about who hurt whom. I'm just going to let you do this. And when somebody's bleeding, you can come back.
I mean, do you ever remember like neighborhood kids fighting? Yeah, like to fight it out. Like, okay, they didn't go run to mom. They figured it out. So like if we ran to mom, I just envisioned for me and told her like, oh, she took my toy. My mom would probably laugh just like you are right now. Like seriously, get back outside, go play.
Figure it out.
And it made me understand like why my mom's house was so clean all the time.
Because we were outside?
Because she could actually take the time to do it. And she wasn't scared of pedophiles, even though, yes, they were there. But I just don't know what happened, what shifted in our society that changed our frame of like, just trust the kid that they're going to be okay.
Well, he also goes into the fact, we're kind of touching on it, but kids test their boundaries.
Yeah.
And once they master that,
they keep going.
They test it again.
Yes.
And so that's where we get the kids are climbing up the slide on the playground. Yes. And now they're climbing up onto the roof of the playground. And they test that, but that's how they get stronger.
Yes.
And so if we're not giving them those little baby steps to take, they won't be able to climb the mountain.
Right.
You have to do it one step at a time.
Absolutely. And I think even like I would be curious to know even the fragility of like our bones and our muscles, because a lot of that strength I could imagine when the growth plates are open, that's kind of helped strengthen a lot of that. And so I'd be curious. I mean, that'd be a whole nother subject. An orthopedic would, he would have
we'll
to
bring on an expert. It'll be great.
But I mean, but really you think about it, like this is all about mental changes. And there's a whole like dilemma that we're in right now with what's going on. These helicopter parents doing it all for their kids. I'm like, when I see that, I go, that poor future daughter-in-law of yours or that poor future son-in-law of yours. But maybe not, because maybe their moms will do it for them forever.
Yeah. I mean, even just as in the physical realm, what you're talking about, our kids are not in shape like they used to because they're not climbing trees and they're not playing tag and they're not like going all in on these physical activities anymore. Their thumbs are in real good shape.
They have tendonitis.
Right.
And they have that hunchback, that new tech neck, and so a lot of things that we used to do that, I mean, I remember as a kid, we used to do the craziest things, but I think the craziest thing I can remember is we would take piles of leaves and rakes and we literally would carve out like bedrooms and like make it like a house. And I mean, it's wild to think about because kids these days would probably think, no way I'm doing that. But when you have nothing, you literally are given no toys. Here's a rake. You know, like you were saying, like you did all these crazy things and you were in mattresses that probably had blood in them. I mean, really, we think about that, but you're still alive.
Right.
You're still fine. And you were able to bring out that creative sense that, like, it made your personality who you are because of all these fun and crazy and, like, outlandish things that we did. And so just being able to live as a kid, I think what I'm worried about, and maybe my question to you is what do you envision when they're our age, how they will be?
Oh, yeah. And that's a great question because I think I am alarmed, kind of like Bill Gates, about the attention span. I see that in myself and not being able, I would be sitting at work and my phone would light up and there would be a notification and I would stop what I was doing, like a very productive task, and turn and look at that. Or I would be in the middle of something and be like, man, I wonder if somebody else responded to this. Maybe I should go and check. There's so much of that, and we're so susceptible to that. I mean, it's like crack. It's drawing us in, and I really worry because I see that scatterbrained aspect in all of my children, and I just want you to be able to focus. I want you to be able to detox a little and realize what is important and where you're really spending your time and energy.
Right.
So I wonder about that and what it'll look like 20 years down the road.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, think about the patience we had. Think about AOL, remember the dial-up? And so, like, being able to even be patient for anything, I'm guilty of it. When something's taking too long, I'm constantly, like, scrolling it down, moving it up, trying to get it to go. And so when we're not having that, like, we just need to be patient. When you're constantly expecting things to be on time, on task, right away, there's got to be something that's going to have to pull because that's not how life works.
I have to maybe not yell at my kids, but every time they ask a question, I just flip it back on them. Like, what do you think the answer is? Before we ask Alexa, can you please just tell me what you think the answer is? Can we process this? Because I would have had to go and open up an encyclopedia. You're just asking the air and it's giving you an answer. Can we just process this, use your brain, use that muscle just a little bit?
I mean, and I love AI. That's another thing that I love. And I think it does amazing and good things. But what I'm scared about is that, think about language arts. Think about math. You can literally plug anything into AI, and you could even put a picture in there. It can create a whole movie for you. So I'm scared about thinking, will these kids actually know how to talk without using, different language like skibbity or riz or, like all those different words, to be able to have a real common communication with someone and be able to understand fully, because you can just use AI to create everything.
Well, and I think it just needs to be put in its rightful place because, like you said, it is a great tool. And I think they will be able to use it so well, but we need to teach them the wisdom of how it is actually used and placed in our lives. So it's not just the easy way out, but it's the creative. It's the, how can I actually use this incredible technology to my advantage? Not just because I'm being lazy and I want it to write a paper for me, but hey, what if we changed my thesis to this? Would it adjust this? Or maybe I've been using my chatbot all the time lately, and it has helped me so much with all of my prompts for the podcast, and it like knows my style now, and it's helping me, and it's like, hey, bestie, let's work on this. And it's pushing me to be better and to be more creative. And like, no, let's tweak that. I like where you're going with that, but I want it to sound like me. So let's do it this way. And so I think we really do need to train our kids. But again, that's like the training wheels on the bike. And when you're in first grade, they don't give you the calculator yet.
No.
So like we have to be introducing these things at the right time.
Correct. And I think all those things are great things. I'm not a person who thinks like, don't give them anything. Because to me, again, kids will find a way around it. Yeah. And so it's more about educating them, more about telling them about it, how to use it properly. I think there are so many amazing things about smartphones and about computers and all the technology that's coming out, I think is great. But if you're not educated on how to use it properly, that's when the red flags go up.
So we were talking about play. There's one last question that I want to ask because it leads into that, and it's the independence. How can we give our kids more opportunities to be independent, where we take our hands back and say, okay, you try?
Right. I mean, what would you say for you?
I think we really are trying to come up with more independent opportunities. He challenges schools to implement a program where parents come up with a plan. Like, their kids actually are the ones that give them the ideas. Like, what could you do that you'd have to be kind of brave for, but what could you do by yourself? I think we were looking at a clip where a kid wanted to go in to Chick-fil-A and buy the food.
Yeah.
And so mom sat in the car, gave him the money, and said, okay, go order your meal and come back out. And he was so proud. Came out just a couple minutes later and was so excited, and like was nervous to get up there and hand the cashier the money, but got the food, got the change, and came back and felt so confident. And that's what I want to instill in my kids. And so I'm trying to figure out what that is. But again, is that riding the bike down to the next cul-de-sac? Is that having a friend over and putting phones aside and playing outside? I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, and I think a lot of that has to do, every kid's different. I think starting at kind of what he was saying about asking them, because every kid knows their limits, right? We could write it for them, but having them write out, like, what would it take for you to be brave? What would it feel like if you did, X, Y, or Z? I mean, I think it's funny that that was the example, because how many times do you see kids be like, Mom, give me like a number 2. Like, no, order it for yourself. Kids are not brave because they don't have to be. And so I think that can look different. And maybe just saying, hey, and I think maybe for me, after kind of reading through a lot of this, is going to my daughter, what would it look like for you to be brave with mom not there? What could you do that would make you feel more confident? Or how could I support you in that?
I do have a couple comments that were submitted on an online post. And so I want to read one of those because it talks about this. So this is from one of my friends, Derek. It said, I loved the book and felt like it was a great summary of some of our priorities and perspectives when it comes to stewarding technology well. He also suggested another book, which I highly recommend. It's Tech-Wise Family, as well as being aware of the negative impacts of not being intentional. We were already practicing many of the tech suggestions, but I found it refreshing the challenge to give children more real-life adventure, freedom, and agency if you are restricting their online privileges. 2 small changes from the book for us were letting our youngest walk himself home from school and trying to be more intentional to give each of our kids more spaces to hang out with their friends in person. And I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Just interacting in the physical world with kids their age. I think that's part of our struggle, is that we have 3 boys and they're all kind of treated the same age, but they're 5 years apart. And that is a world of a difference when you're talking about a teenager and an 8-year-old. And so giving them time to hang out with their peers, because their brothers are not their peers.
Right.
And so I think that's where we're kind of focused these days.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great place to start. I think they're together in a way that parents don't realize because they're online together, but actually having to say, all right, kids, come on in, phones go here, you can have them back when you leave. Just talk. So many times I see kids hanging out, but their phones are in their faces, and they're like, no, we're hanging out. I'm like, no, you're not.
Okay, but the parents are guilty of that too.
Oh, yes. Yes, we are. And that's one thing. It's like, be present. Like, we have, when you think about family that comes in town, how many times do you guys put away your phones and just be with them? Saying, like, how often do you get to be with them? Once a year? And
Right.
So taking that time to actually say, all right, all the rest of this has my attention 360 days of the year. These 5 days I can give to them.
That's a good point, because I think about all of our family game nights and things like that. I come from a big board game family, and so we didn't have phones distracting us in between trivia questions or in between rounds of a game. And it really made you actually communicate and engage with each other. And so I feel like at our house, we always have a TV on in the background, and it drives me bonkers. And I don't know if that's just like me being a woman in a house of males, but like, man, my attention span, like I can't handle the noise. I'm overstimulated and I just want quiet. But I think there's a lot of growth that we could do in that arena. But fostering more situations for kids to play out with kids, that's one of my goals for this summer.
Well, and it's hard too because a lot of us don't know our neighbors. A lot of us don't have other like neighborhood kids. Or when I grew up, we would go hang out with the neighborhood kids. We'd go ride our bikes to the neighbor's house and we'd go play over there. We'd be out back, or out front, or we'd go play at the school. But they don't have those opportunities like we had. I don't know what is so different. I'm sure there are kids that are in your neighborhood that are the same age and probably have the same things that they enjoy. But kids are behind screens. They're not out riding their bike, getting to know the other kids in the neighborhood. And so it's just different. It's like, go ride your bike. See who you see.
Maybe this is a good prompt for everyone or just a good suggestion. We held a neighborhood barbecue a couple years ago, just put out signs and said, we're going to cover this, like just show up. We want to meet our neighbors. And we had this big spread of pulled pork and everything. And then we didn't know who was going to actually show up. And it was like 20 minutes after we had said, and still nobody was there. And then I saw a couple walking down the road and then another one from the other side. And we ended up with like more than a dozen families. And it was the first time any of us had ever actually met.
Wow.
And we're the ones that you recognize from shouting at our kids with their bikes because nobody else came outside. And so it was one of those where I feel like we do need to actually get to know our neighbors again and have that community because, yes, I want the family on the end to be able to say, knock it off to my kids and send them back when they're being stupid.
Oh, yes.
But right now I can't. Like, they don't know my kids and they wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. But I think getting to know the people around you is a big first step.
Right, because I remember thinking, if I have to ask my mom, I'm not going to. I didn't ever want to inconvenience my mom. So it was, and not that I don't think that she wouldn't have done it, but for some reason in my mind, it was, I'm not going to inconvenience her to drive me to a friend's house, unless it was like a sleepover. But even then, it would be like the house across from us where we'd sleep over, or down the road where we'd walk to their house. And so just having a different community was how I felt like I grew up. And so that's also a challenge in the world we live in because not everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon of, hey, kids, go play outside. And that's okay.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But those who do, we need to find each other. We need to like connect in some way and be able to communicate like, hey, like-minded parents, I don't want my kid to feel like she's the only one not getting a cell phone until she's 16.
Right. Nope. 100% on that one. They talk about the actions that we can take, and that is one of the main goals. It's partnering up with a few other families to delay giving your child a smartphone until high school. Give them a flip phone instead. Partner up with a few other families to delay giving your child access to social media until 16. Partner up with a few other parents to ask your school to go phone free so you can give your kids 7 hours of attention and in-person socialization. Set up boundaries in your household. So all of those recommendations were do it together.
Yes.
Because you don't want your kid being embarrassed about their house being the no technology zone or they don't get to play any of those games. But if you're on the same page with other families, they'll manage.
Yeah, they will. And really to be able to understand like, oh, it's not just your mom. Okay, cool. Like let's do this together because it's easier when you're in a group of like, oh man, your mom doesn't let you have a cell phone either. She doesn't let you be on social media. Oh, that sucks. So then they just keep on moving and they don't think twice about it because it's not like, oh, you're that kid that doesn't get the phone. Oh.
And for play, I would just want to kind of go with a couple more of these recommendations. It said, keep Friday afternoons free for your neighborhood playtime. Partner up with a few other parents and ask your school to start a phone-free Let Grow Play Club before and after school. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
On your block, arrange for one parent to sit outside each afternoon so the kids can play outside together. So that's not completely unsupervised, but that's just sharing the load and knowing that there is a responsible adult around.
Right.
I feel like that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that also we need to be on the same page as parents going, please don't be offended when I correct your kid too. Sometimes some people don't love the way, and it's like, I expect you to do the same for my kid. If my kid's doing something wrong and I'm 20 feet away from them and you're right next to them, please correct them. And my kids will respect you as your kids should respect me, because the thing is we're all doing this together. It takes a village, right?
It does.
So doing it as a village, truly, it does matter.
Ask your friends to start doing one thing inside the home and outside the home without your assistance that will help you. I love that. I've been trying to get my kids to notice and do.
Yeah.
And that just means, like, you noticed that those socks were on the floor, so you put them in the basket. Like, I'm noticing and doing a lot of things. So can you notice and do some things too? And that's also taking on the responsibility.
Yeah.
And being in charge of your dirty clothes, of your dirty dishes. Oh, you noticed that the dishwasher had clean things in it? Oh, you're just going to put your dishes in the sink instead? That should trigger something else in your brain to go and help me put the dishes away. And so we're trying to have those conversations. Yeah. I don't know that really fits into this conversation, but it is part of the independence and the caring about the world around you.
Right.
And I think they've become so self-centered because they're just in their own little world all the time.
And they can get lost in that. I think for me, having two girls, I really think about one day they're going to have homes of their own, really to be able to care for their own home. I don't want them to ever not know how to do something. I mean, my daughter's 8 years old. She does our household laundry. And so that's crazy. Other parents are like, she seriously does your laundry?
That's amazing.
Like, yes. She goes up, she complains, but it's okay. She gets our towels and puts them in the washing machine. She puts them in the dryer. She might fold them. I'll refold them later, but that's okay. Because the thing is I need to know, and she needs to know, that one day you're going to be the one in charge of all of this. And so my job is now to help you make mistakes, is to help you do all these things in the life we live in. Sure, you could do the laundry on your little, like she plays these games that she plays house all the time. But it's like, but can you really do it? No. Right. And so knowing how to do the things and like knowing how to climb a tree, it's actually a skill. It's not easy. And so, I mean, my question for you is like, would you want to grow up with like the way that kids do today?
That is such a loaded question. Yeah. I love it because I think it would be so daunting. Social media, first and foremost, with the likes and the favorites and the comments, that is a world that I did not grow up in, and I don't think I would have done well with that. I was always kind of an outsider, so part of that really draws me in, and I feel like I could have been more connected to people, but I don't think I would trade it. I enjoyed my childhood. I had probably what would be called an extremely independent childhood. So maybe pulling back from that a little bit and not having so much independence forced upon me. But I don't think I would want to grow up like my children are doing. What about you?
I wouldn't. I mean, for me, I grew up a tomboy. I grew up like with all the stigma of softball player. I hung out with the boys. I was rough and tumble. And so I could never fathom growing up in today's society, because even, the talk about like what you are, social media plays a big role in that. It really tries to tell you what your identity is. And so I was able and fortunate, and I say fortunate because I didn't grow up with all this, to be able to say, like, I'm just a normal girl who just likes to hang with the guys and get dirty. And so, and now you look at like all these social media posts, all these different things that kids are running to. And I say running to because when they're in their rooms by themselves, what are they doing? They're not reading a book. If they have their phones in their rooms, then they're scrolling. They're looking at what other kids are saying. Lies or not, they're seeing like, oh, who's famous? Who's going to tell me who I am? Who's going to tell me what I like? And so it's pushing it on them. Well, choose what you are. Don't grow up. Don't just grow up and try to figure out. I mean, I think I was maybe 28 before I really figured life out and was like, oh.
You haven't figured out?
All right, I'm cool who I am. You don't
Right.
like me? It's okay. And so I could never, ever have handled all of the bullying online. I could never have handled not having my bedroom be my safe place where I can just jump in my bunk bed and go, I'm done with those people for today. And so in some ways, I feel sorry for the kids that grow up today because they have so many things in their face 24/7. I feel like all we had was Cosmo magazines to compare ourselves with. And so it's so different. I wouldn't want it. Not at all.
It really does feel like Mars. It's so night and day. I mean, even just having those conversations with my kids about, oh, you didn't get your first phone until you were 18. Facebook didn't exist. Instagram, the internet didn't exist. What are you talking about?
Do you remember chatting with the door sound open and closed when you're on AOL? I mean, I can hear that sound in my head. And so that was our texting, that was how we would text. And so just so different.
So I feel like we've covered a lot of things about this book, but we've also just scratched the surface.
Oh, yes.
Are there any of the questions that you feel like we missed? I mean, there's still plenty. I know, were there any more from the teacher perspective that you wanted to address? Because I know there's mental health we didn't even really get into, but that's why I'm hoping that this prompts people to go and listen to the book. I think you can listen to this episode without having listened to the book or read the book. I think you'll get a lot out of it either way.
Right. I think my only last question I have is, because I want to play devil's advocate, what benefits do you see with social media? What benefits do you see with technology? Where do you see it in your home, in your family, that actually is a good thing?
I really enjoy using social media to keep my friends and family up to date with my family, because we live far away in a different state than almost our entire family. And so that is the way that I'm able to show them cute pictures of my baby, and we FaceTime a lot and do things like that. But there is a lot of comparison going on of, am I a good mom? Do I measure up to the other people? So I share way more online than maybe my husband would prefer. I know that's a fact. But that is a way, and I know that I fall into that trap of wanting to appear better than I am, or more significant, or I've got my act together. I've figured out this 30-something lifestyle, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's all a shell. It's all a mask. And so there are good things, and interacting, and I've made so many friends online that I would never have met had I not done that. There are benefits, but I just look at, if I would have had an Instagram account when I was 13 as opposed to when I was 20, that's a very big difference.
Yeah.
That's a minefield.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to kind of put it. I mean, if I could take it for my kids and say, I wish that you didn't have this, I almost wish I could say, take away the phones, take away the technology. It's not to say that I think there's so much bad, but it's taking away their childhood. It really is not allowing them to embrace a stick or leaves or a tree, because, I mean, it's, kick a can around, things like that. They don't understand how to just, what I would say, be a kid, because is that different nowadays? Does that look different nowadays? And so is it going to get worse?
Right.
And so just knowing where they're at, I wish they could have the childhood that we had. Now, mind you, there's things about my childhood that I probably would take away. I can reach all of my family members by just one post, and they can all read it, know how we're doing. But then that takes away the phone calls. It takes away the family reunions. And so a lot of that, I mean, it's hard.
Right. It's a really big shift. That is interesting, because I don't think we've had our big family reunions anymore. And wow. There's a lot shifting, and it is hard. And I think one of the things that Haidt proposes, or maybe it was one of the other experts, that Gen Z or maybe it's Gen Alpha, like there really isn't an end in sight until there's another massive change in technology. So we do have Gen Alpha and Gen Beta, but they're all going through the exact same thing. There hasn't been a significant change.
Right.
Although, devil's advocate, pandemic was a very massive change. So I feel like people after that could signify a big change.
That was a huge change. I lived at home with a child at home, and I was laid off for that time and furloughed. And so for me, it changed my life in a good way, though. We took walks every day. We couldn't even play on the playgrounds. But in that time, I'm going to tell you, that was the only way that I could reach out to a lot of my family and friends. And so I was very fortunate during the pandemic. But again, it's like we had hours and hours home. And I think it did shift parents saying, I've got to work from home for 8 hours. Here's a tablet because I need you to do something.
Right.
And then also
the
parents having to teach their kids. And so there was a lot in that pandemic that shifted a whole lot.
Right. But I will definitely ask people to read the book and dig into it, because it's showing that this shift to the phone-based childhood started in the early 2000s,
right,
when the iPhone came out. Early 2010s is when a huge shift happened. And I don't think we can just blame it on the pandemic. That's where, there's got to be something else. And it wasn't just something in the U.S., because this happened across the world. That was in the first summary that I read. This was a global thing. The data started showing up different. And what changed around then? Widespread internet access.
Right. And I think if you look at other countries, like Japan, example, they don't even in China, the TikTok that they have is not even the same, because they know how addictive it is. And so their priorities, again, it's not greed. A lot of America is about money. A lot of it's like, how much more money can we get? How much more money can we get? And so they get more likes, they get more followers, they get more money. And so a lot of theirs is their priority, is their education's more important than them scrolling and having phones. And so a lot of that, to me, looks like them educating their kids on the importance of what they think is more important in their life. And so...
Well, I think there are a lot of kids now who dream and aspire to be influencers and YouTube stars, which, again, you can.
Yes.
That is an actual calling these days. That can be your goal. But I feel like that's now the dream. It used to be, I want to be an NFL player.
Or the president.
Right. And now, parents would be like, only a certain percentage of people ever become NFL players. And now we have to do that with influencer.
Yeah.
Well, you probably won't have 50 million viewers or subscribers. We have to be realistic with that and remind them that it is a tool. I mean, hey, if you want to invite your friends to follow our podcast and give us some more views and more followers, that's great. We're trying to use social media and all of these platforms for our advantage now. And I want to encourage my children to take advantage of those things too, but with the safeguards in place.
Right. It's all about education. All right. So I'm curious, what did you think about the book? How would you rate this book? What are your takeaways? And what are the things that maybe you didn't like about the book?
Okay, well, I think that as a generous rater, I think I gave this one a 5-star online because it's so thought-provoking. I think that's really what it comes down to, is that whether or not the data is completely sound, it made me think, and it made me question, and it made me change some of the things that I do. So I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it to people all the time, because I think that it is valuable to at least question your priorities. I will read another person's comments because they responded and gave me their review. It said, my biggest takeaways were to work harder to pry my kids away from screens, make them play outside, and give them opportunities to be independent. It also staunchly confirmed my decision not to give my kids smartphones until they're 16, and even then not to allow social media. As you can tell, I'm going to be really popular with my kids. Something that really stood out to me after reading this was the idea of being undistractable. If the rest of my kids' peers are raised as slaves to their devices, unable to self-regulate or self-motivate, steering my kids away from those habit-producing behaviors will only set them up for success in the future. They will stand out among the crowd. That was from Sadie. And I think that's what it is. I want my kids to be intelligent, hard workers, and good contributing members of society. I don't want them to be little drones walking around and just reciting all of the latest skibbity videos and
doing all
ridiculousness.
The dances.
Yes. Which we had our own form of that.
Right.
We had our own form of that back in our day.
And I'm so glad it's not recorded.
Right. That's why I wouldn't trade it. That's why I wouldn't go back. Because all of those fun moments are not caught on video and are not going to last forever. They're up here for the people that attended.
Yes. And I mean, I think when we were out and about in our, in the town, you and I kind of had that conversation of, I'm so glad that the things that I did and, embarrassing as they were, it's not recorded. It's not on live stream. It's not on the internet. It's not even on a phone. Because how many...
No, it was on one of those little Cool Pics cameras, and then you dumped every single photo into a Facebook album.
Well, I mean, and really in that, it's probably on some external hard drive somewhere because you had to offload all the memory. And so we didn't have the cloud to hold it all. And so all these things goes, oh, wow, yeah, I'm glad I don't have all that.
Yep. I agree. What is your rating?
So I'm going to say this with saying, I think you should read the book. I think anyone who has any thoughts of what's going on with the world around us and what kind of shift in our society is with bringing in technology, smartphones, all of those things. So understand when I give you my rating, I still say to read the book because I think in society we have to understand that the way that the world is going, we can't just take away the technology. We actually, it's like a drug, right? And so if you take a drug and you say it's bad, we'll say drinking. If we say don't ever do it, don't ever do it, don't ever do it, and they turn 21, it's so bad. But we don't encourage and I should say be smart with it and educate them on how to use it and why it's bad. Don't just say it's bad. We need to educate them and understand that unfortunately it's the world that we live in and it's the world that they live in. So fostering, yes, because I think he pretty much put it black or white in there's a phone-based childhood or a play-based childhood. Well, why can't we? Unfortunately, in the society we live in, I think it needs to be a little bit of both because we live in a technology world. We live in a world that has both. And yes, I am going to be the mom that doesn't give my phone till 16 to my daughters. It still doesn't mean that I can't educate her on being safe, that there are predators online, that there are unsafe things, but I'm still going to let her have some iPad time on, the weekends. I'm still going to allow her to have that downtime. For whatever reason, I don't believe that there's one or the other. I think there needs to be a little bit of a mix. So in that aspect, I go, come on, Haidt, it is not black or white. So really, if I say, reading the book, a lot of the material, a lot of what I reflected was a 5. But if I'm the book, it was really hard to read.
Yeah.
If I have to actually rate the book as it is, I go, it was so much information that he could have taken out that, although super important, he could have put it up online that we didn't have to get through a lot of it. It was hard to read in some ways. I felt like his book was over my head up to points to where it was I don't understand where he's going with this. And so, really the book I had to give it a 3.5 because it was so hard for me. Like I told you, I tried to read it. And I was if we weren't doing this for my podcast, this would be a DNF. I would not finish this book. It would not be good. Even though, yes, I was interested in this, I probably would have gone on, read his synopsis of quick fix of okay, here's the...
Right. In some.
Yes, really. I would... The last few minutes of his, I think it's the 3 minutes left of each section. That's and so I'm why didn't you just give me the sum the whole time? And so... It's great information.
Life hack. Just go to the end of every chapter. There's just bullet points of really important information. Do that.
Yes. If you're not going to read the book. Because it was hard. Yeah. It was at points Jamie.
Okay, so I do want to ask, how much nonfiction do you read?
I tried to give myself like last year, like I want to read one a month. And so I try to read one a month. It's pretty much been every other month because I've not been really consistent with it. But I try to read at least one every so often, whether it is a marriage book, whether it's about parenting. I've read a lot of really good parenting books. So I have read some really good ones. I've heard a lot of amazing things that people that don't think it's hard to read.
Right.
But for me, it was hard.
I mean, it was hard to read. It was a lot easier to listen. I 100% agree with that. And I hope that people will take us up on this. And I think that a lot of people have read this. And so I'm curious to hear the perspective of people's reaction to the points that we've brought up.
Yeah.
Because we are just two people.
Yeah.
Again, do not shoot the messengers. We are just relaying information. And I think most of the stuff that we talked about is our personal experience with this.
Absolutely.
And so I would love to hear more from our listeners and viewers to see what really hit home for them. I love that I had a couple people that I could shout out in here. So same thing with all of our books. We want the feedback. We want people to feel like they're part of the conversation.
Well, and I actually would be really interested, even like my mom or my grandmother, how the generational gap, how they want to just slap us like, what are you doing, millennial parents? You're doing it all wrong. Like, you know, like when was the shift of parenting that's no longer parenting, or when did parents no longer, you know, do things or hand their kids a cell phone? Because I'm pretty sure there's got to be a generational gap that they're like, what are you doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So key takeaways, partner up with some people around you and discuss these things.
Yes.
So
do it together.
Send them this link, send them the podcast, listen to it, read the book, and then decide, do you want to team up to delay social media, to delay giving your kid a phone? Because all of these suggestions said it's better together.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and we can do this together.
All right, we'll team up with you.
Okay, the episode is over. If you enjoyed it, could you give us a thumbs up or leave a review?
It goes a long way toward helping us grow and meet new people like you.
Subscribe to get notified when the next episode drops.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook to see what we're reading next, recommend new books, and join the conversation.
We're so excited to have you on board.